Please be seated. We're a little out of practice at that after almost 2 years of a lot of different procedures and so on and so forth. We're kind of resuming our first council meeting back to almost normal. All the councillors who can be here in the council chamber are back at their regular spots, and we have an audience and the media here live and direct, so that's good. We do have a few councillors who can't actually, for various reasons, be in council chambers, so they are joining via Teams, as often has been the case, but it's great to see things in society gradually figuring out ways of getting back to normal. So without further ado, to our acting city clerk, Amber, our first item of business, please.
Roll call, Your Worship. I've taken the roll, and all members of council are present, including Councillor Cullen, Parker, and Desjardins, appearing via Teams, with the exclusion of Councillor Lukey, who sent his regrets.
Thank you. And next item, please.
A motion to adopt this evening's agenda, Your Worship.
Motion moved by Councillor Chaboyer, seconded by Councillor Frangi. Any changes or additions? Seeing none, I think we're ready for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And next item, please.
Confirmation of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held March 21st, 2022.
Moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Barry. Again, any errors or omissions? And not seeing any. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And next item, please.
Under the order of presentations, Your Worship, a presentation from Greg Brown, Airport Manager, on the Brandon Municipal Airport Aviation Wall of Fame.
Very good. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Worship, Council. So tonight, what I was wanting to talk about is looking for City Council's support for an aviation wall of fame at the Brandon Municipal Airport. Funding for this program will be managed through the airport's operating budget. So there will be no ask for funds at council for this. We'll be able to manage through that. The goal of the initiative is to recognize and commemorate those who merit recognition for their outstanding contributions to the Brandon Airport's long history and success in aviation. I don't know if most people know the history of the airport, but I'll go through real quick. Brandon Municipal Airport, or McGill Field, was initially constructed as part of a Department of National Defense in 1941 as part of the Commonwealth Air Training Plan for World War II. By 1946, the City of Brandon was leasing the land for a future municipal airport and also serving as a new field for the Brandon Flying Club. Brandon City Council appointed a commission to oversee the newly inaugurated municipal airport operations. And in 1952, the operational responsibilities of the airport was turned over to the Brandon Flying Club. The responsibility was returned to the City of Brandon in 1970. 1970 is also when the airport was designated as McGill Field. To honor Mr. Ed McGill's outstanding contribution in Canadian aviation. The plaque that commemorated the redesignation has been in storage since the terminal redevelopment project. That plaque will be put back on display as part of this initiative. So it'll be a little while since that's been out. Over the past 75 years, there's been many people who have contributed to the history of the Brandon Municipal Airport. And to be inducted into the Wall of Fame, nominees must have been affiliated with the Brandon Municipal Airport in one of the following categories. So as in with the handout that we provided. Aviation achievements, so pilots, maintenance staff, students, crews, support staff, aviation pioneers or builders, aviation industry leaders or community outreach programs. Basically, they must have been recognized for their contribution in aviation, so that's military, civilian, or both, and must have been connected to the Brandon Airport somehow. For example, demonstrated excellence in professional aviation, an extraordinary passion or commitment to one of the categories that we listed, and it could even directly contribute to the Brandon Airport or aviation elsewhere, but somehow has a strong connection to the Brandon Municipal Airport. Nominees can be living or deceased. We look for that. We're in the process of getting a form put online so that nominees can fill out the one-page form. We want the primary nomination letter to not be more than one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, with 2 letters supporting the nomination. Must accompany the primary nomination letter. These supporting letters must be written by someone other than the person making the nomination, but they can have all the supporting documentation attached to that. It's just we want to minimize some of the initial information. There will be a selection committee established, made up of stakeholders and City of Brandon employees that will determine, will review the packages, come up with a scoring matrix for them, determine how many nominees will be inducted each year. And even if nominees are not inducted the year that they apply, they will be put on a list for 5 years to be considered each year along with the other inductees. We'll be doing public announcements in April with a June deadline for nominations. And then the board will sit in late June, early July, and induction ceremonies to take place mid-August to beginning of September. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Certainly very interesting, and I know long in the works project, and so we will open up the floor for questions any member of council may have. So we'll take those now. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Brown, just a quick question on, is there a limit to the number of appointees each year, or like is there a certain number that you're looking or seeking to appoint each year onto this Wall of Fame, or is it vary?
It's going to vary from year to year. One of the things we wouldn't want to have happen is say that we're only taking 5, or we're only taking 3, or we're only taking 1, and then there'd be other candidates worthy that we, just push it off for a year just because we said we'd only have 1. So we will we'll see how it goes. We may have years where we have multiples. We may have years where we have none. So yeah, we've not limited it to a certain number. We'll determine that based on how many we receive.
Excellent. Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands. I'm going to toss one in, and forgive me if I missed it. I couldn't see in here. Can nominees be both either posthumous or living?
Yes, they could be either or.
Yeah, okay. I presume we would consider posthumous individuals that have contributed to the airport as well. So, yeah, very good. And just checking with our colleagues online here. Not seeing any hands up, but okay. I think that concludes all the questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Again, knowing that our airport has had a significant and continues to have a significant impact on our community and on the region, I might add. It and certainly the history of it is quite interesting, and there have been some significant contributors to that. It's certainly a very worthy project, and thank you very much for bringing it together and making it quite detailed and kind of fleshed out. So thank you very much. A motion to receive would be in order if somebody would like. Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the presentation by Greg Brown, Airport Manager, with respect to the Brandon Municipal Airport Aviation Wall of Fame be received.
And seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And next item, please.
Under the order of public hearings, Your Worship, we have the 2022 financial plan.
Very good. So we will probably have a presentation leading off by a member of administration making a presentation on the financial plan, following which we'll open up the floor to any member of the public that would like to speak to the plan, and then we'll close the hearing. Director of Finance, Val Rochelle. Welcome.
So good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and the viewing public. As part of the public hearing on the 2022 financial plan, I will be highlighting some of the items included in the budget. The 2022 budget is $7.3 million higher than in 2021. The most significant item making up this increase is $3.7 million in capital grants for affordable housing projects. However, there is also an equal amount in offsetting revenue, as these funds are a flow-through from the province and therefore a net zero impact on the overall budget. Assessment growth also contributes to the budget increase. The city's assessment base increased by approximately 1.19%, which translates to about $542,000. This is calculated using the 2022 assessment and the 2021 mill rate. Other increases, or other areas with increases, include protective services at $1.1 million, transportation services at $749,000, recreation and culture at $491,000, transfers to reserves $560,000, and debt servicing payments at $243,000, which is the 34th Street extension. This slide shows the expense categories and the percentage of each over the total expenses. As you can see, protective services and transportation make up almost 54% of the total costs for the city. Protective services includes police, fire and ambulance, emergency communications, and building inspections. Transportation includes fleet services, street reconstruction and preservation, street maintenance, sidewalks, snow removal, airport, and transit. For revenues and transfers, municipal property taxes make up the highest percentage of the city's total revenues at about 48%. User fees and sales of goods is at 16%, and government transfers, both conditional and unconditional combined, is at 24.5%. As mentioned earlier, the 2022 budget includes $3.7 million in provincial funds for affordable housing. Permits, licenses, and fines include such items as mobile home fees, building permits, and traffic and parking tickets. Other income includes development cost charges for approximately $1.3 million, and these amounts are appropriated to the related reserves. So this slide shows the impact of the 2022 budget on an average residential property for municipal taxes only. The budget includes a 1.9% tax increase. So a property with a gross assessed value of $270,000 will have a property tax bill for $1,917, which will be an increase of $35.66 in municipal taxes. So where does that $1,917 go? Well, this slide shows how an individual tax bill would be allocated to each of the expense categories within the budget, and the annual cost is also shown on a per day basis. The utility fund budget is approximately $1.7 million higher than the 2021 budget. Increases include $557,000 for water purification and treatment, which is largely due to the new chemical building being in operation. $463,000 is for sewage collection, treatment, and disposal, and $323,000 is for transfers to reserves. So this slide again shows the expense categories for the utility and the percentage of each over the total expenses. Water supply makes up the majority of the utility expenses at 53%. And within that category, the largest item is for purification and treatment at approximately $7.2 million. The largest portion of utility revenues, at 81%, comes from consumption and connection fees. Other revenue includes $2.1 million in development cost charges, which are appropriated to the related reserves, and $1.9 million in recoveries from Maple Leaf and Pfizer per their cost-sharing agreements. The 2022 capital budget for both general and utility projects equals just over $120 million. Significant projects include southeast drainage improvements at just over $30 million, the southwest lift station phase 1 at $15 million, the outdoor sports field complex at $14 million, the RCMP operations communication center at $3.7 million, and upgrades at the water treatment and wastewater treatment facilities at $28 million. Information on the 2022 budget can be found on the city's website at www.brandon.ca. There you will find the 2022 financial plan, budget reports, as well as this presentation. Tax notices will be mailed out mid-May, and per the Municipal Act, property owners are responsible for payment of property taxes whether or not a bill is received. The 2022 property tax due date is June 30th, and property owners may make tax prepayments, and discounts on prepayments are available in April and May at 0.5% and 0.25% respectively. The city offers a tax installment plan, which is an automatic bank withdrawal payment program, and applications are now being accepted. They can conveniently be submitted online by going to onlineservices.brandon.ca. And tax inquiries can be made by calling 729-2228 or 729-2592, or by email at taxes@brandon.ca. So that concludes this evening's presentation, and if there are any questions, I will be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you very much. So leading off, we've got Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you, through your worship, to Ms. Rochelle, who always does an exceptionally good job of explaining this to us. The one thing I noticed we've kind of gotten away from adding in there, and I'm not sure why, is we always show our residential property tax impact, and we don't ever show our commercial property impacts anymore. And we do know, it is portioned at, I believe, 60%.
It's 65.
65%, yeah. So it is good to know because there is an impact on them. We don't quite get all the services. I guess I got a couple of different tax bills. And it is good for the residents to know that the taxes do pay their share plus and essentially subsidize a lot of the other taxes. Not a great big deal. Everybody that's got their business knows what we're paying, but we used to always show residential and commercial.
Through your worship, that's a very good point. I will mention, though, that as far as the actual general municipal mill rate and like the percentage increase, it's the same whether it's residential or commercial. The difference on the commercial side is when you get into the school taxes, but it still makes sense that we could show a commercial calculation on an assessed value.
Part of that is for the public to also realize that they certainly are paying their share at a bit higher portion value with a bit less amenities.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Councillor Fawcett. Thanks for bringing that up. And we have Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. Rochelle. Val, thanks very much again for great work you do in the budget all the time every year. It's always been lots of fun doing that with you and that. So lots of questions as always and that. One I have is just more for clarity. When we talked about the capital projects that we're doing here for 2022, I mean, people at first glance at that 120 million are going to go, whoa, like, you know, city's really doing a lot. One of the things that I've noticed though is we've got these projects in our 2022 capital plan, but a lot of these things are not going to get done or completed in 2022, yet the numbers are in there. For example, $14 million in the sports field. We know that's not going to get all done this year, and also we're not paying the whole $14 million. So I'm just trying to get some clarity for residents to understand that, you know, not all these things are getting done this year, and the city is not being totally responsible for paying for all of them. We have other levels of funding as well that are actually paying for quite a bit of this stuff. So.
Through your worship, yes, you're absolutely correct. And, you know, if we stay with the example of the sports field complex, yes, it will be a multi-year project, as many of our projects are. But in order to have the sort of authority to put tenders out for individual projects, we have to be able to identify a funding source. It you know, would not be appropriate to, say, put out a tender for a, you know, $10 million project and only show, you know, $5 million in kind of the current year, because
right,
your funding source and the value of your project aren't aligned. So, yeah, it is a little bit tricky to follow that stuff. But yeah, many of the projects are multi-year projects, and the portions that aren't completed in the current year will then be rebudgeted to show that they continue on in future years.
Thanks. And just to follow up, Your Worship, that's kind of what I was looking for explanation-wise, just to make people understand is that this isn't all this year. Like, this is going to be the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Correct.
Getting done. It's a lot of money. A lot of things are happening in Brandon, good things. But we're not spending that much money quite this year. But yeah.
That's
Thanks very
correct.
much, Val. Great explanation.
You're welcome.
And thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Barry. It is an important thing for people to understand that, so thanks for bringing that one up. And Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Worship. My question is more just sort of for information to get out there for residents. Around the table here, definitely we would know what the TIPS program is. Would you be able to give a little bit more of a rundown of what TIPS is, and if it does have an extra cost to residents to be able to be part of the TIPS program, just because it might be good information to have out there?
Certainly, yes, through your worship. So the TIPS program is a tax installment plan where we debit an individual bank account on a monthly basis for an equal amount. So simple calculation is we take the annual taxes, we divide it by 12, and we take that amount out of your bank account each year. So if you're on that program, the payments go from January to December. There is no discount for early payments, so the ones from January to May, but the taxes are also not due by June 30th because we continue the payments from July to December, but you are not charged any penalty charges from July to December, so you don't get the discount and you're not charged the penalty. If individuals would like to still enroll in the program, they can do so, and they can either, you know, come into the office and, you know, one of the staff will help them, or they can go online and fill out the application there. But because it is a 12-month January to December sort of equalized plan, we've already taken the payments for January to not 100% sure if April's gone through yet or not, but say January to April. So if they wanted to sign up and get into the program for May, they would pay January to April up front to get themselves caught up, and then we would start the payments in May and go through till December.
Just a quick follow-up, if I could, Your Worship. And just for the benefit of residents, that's great, because I know a lot of our residents use this program, myself included. One other question then, there isn't a interest charge, or there isn't a financial, it doesn't cost a resident extra to participate in TIPS as opposed to paying it outright?
Through your worship, no, there is no cost. The only cost that there may be would be, like, should a payment not be honored by the financial institution, there may be charges from the bank, but there are no charges to enroll in the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Fawcett again.
Right on, through your worship. I'm going to piggyback on Councillor Cameron's here, because we were talking about just our general taxes here, but utilities, we also, we generally, a lot of people get a quarterly for our utilities, but we do have the opportunity to go monthly. So either online, as you said earlier, or come in to the office here and fill it out. And so a person could get their monthly water bill versus the quarterly if they so choose. So.
That is correct. And through your worship, if individuals go to the online services on our website, they click on a button, or there's a header, I believe, that says, I want to, and then you click on what you want to do. So you either want to enroll in the TIPS program, you want to change your mailing address, there's all different things, and then depending on what you click on, it takes you through the steps and leads you through the fields that need to be required in order to do what you've chosen to do.
Again, good point. We do have lots of, I guess, sort of user-friendly programs out there, and so thanks to Councillor Cameron and Fawcett for reminding our taxpayers about these things that are available. So any other questions on Council's part before we will carry on with the public hearing and hear from other members of the public? I don't think so. Thank you very much, Ms. Rochelle, again, for that was an excellent presentation, and certainly the great work you do throughout the year, especially through all these budget matters. So now we will open up the floor to any presentations. We are in public hearing about this year's financial plan. I know we have some people in the audience, at least one real audience member. Whether or not he's here to speak on the financial plan remains to be seen, but anybody that would like to speak to the financial plan is welcome to come ahead now. I say that only not to kind of call him out, but the President of the Brandon Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Barry Cooper, is in the audience. The Chamber certainly is a good partner when it comes to budget time. However, they appropriately provided most of their feedback prior to Council's deliberation of the budget, which frankly does help us the most. And they do spend quite a bit of time at it and spend time with our administration and provided quite a fulsome document to Council just prior to our budget deliberations, which we're grateful for. So I'll just ask one more time if there are any representations with respect to the 2022 financial plan. And seeing that there appears to be none, we could take a motion to conclude the hearing. Please.
Put it on the table. Oh, yeah.
Councillor Chaboyer.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the public hearing on the City of Brandon's 2022 financial plan be concluded.
Seconded by, I believe, by Councillor Barry. Did your hand up? Did you, Councillor Barry? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I do believe we will be dealing with the passage of that a little later on the agenda. So next item, please, Madam Acting Clerk.
Under the order of public hearings, Your Worship, we have a public hearing for bylaw number 7328, which is to borrow funds for the upgrade and expansion of the water treatment facility.
Again, another hearing, and I think Mr. Hammond is going to be speaking to us on that and doing so virtually. So take it away there, Dean. And hang on a minute there, Dean. It's not coming through yet, so just...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's coming on, but just hang on a minute. Amber's just changing the screen. Okay, I think we're good now. Go ahead, Dean.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, and members of Council and members of the public. My apologies for not being able to be there in person tonight, but we'll do this as best we can virtually. I do have a short presentation to share. Bear with me. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to give a brief presentation on the water treatment plant upgrade and expansion project. I will speak a bit to the project, and I will also speak to the financial implications of this project. I will take questions regarding the financial piece at the end, and if there's any technical questions, then I would defer that to Patrick Pulak, who could speak to the engineering implications of this project. So a bit of history to start with. Our application for funding for this project goes back to 2015, where we applied to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program for upgrades to the city's water treatment facility at 108 26th Street North. That application has been tweaked over the years, and funding amounts have been increased. And in April of last year, we received notification that we were successful in our application for a total of a $125 million project, funded not quite 1/3 each by the federal government, the provincial government, and the remainder to come from the city of Brandon. In March of this year, we executed our agreement with the province and the federal government on this project, so it would be now prudent to proceed with the process for obtaining borrowing authority for our portion of the project. Regarding the project itself and the anticipated project outcomes, the biggest outcome for this project will be the removal of chlorinated gas from the water treatment plant treatment and purification process. As many members of the public are aware, we truck large volumes of chlorinated gas in very large tanks through the city to the water treatment plant. It will be nice to have chlorinated gas removed from the process. It is, of course, an environmental and a safety concern, and everyone can sleep better at night knowing that we're removing that risk from our city. The second piece, which is already under construction, is the new chemical building, which will add efficiencies to the process and address environmental issues. We'll have better, more concentrating dosing of our chemicals, and also we will have proper spill containment and vessels for our chemicals. Right now, if there were to be a chemical spill at the plant, we don't have any efficient means of containing that. Our new building will allow us to do that. Also in that, we will have a new intake system for the water plant where the water is pulled from the river. Of course, as people were aware last year when we were facing potential drought situations, the amount of water available to the plant is always of concern, and with changing climate impacts, we will have a more robust system that will allow us to obtain water from the river in a more efficient and robust manner, especially during low water levels. The third big piece of the expansion is ultimately we will have membrane technology for water purification. Right now, we're currently not able to address or meet the standards for trihalomethanes, which is essentially suspended organic compounds within the treated water. Our current system cannot accommodate that, but a membrane system will be able to do that. At the end of the day, the water treatment plant will use approximately 50% of the existing infrastructure, which works well for the most part. It will be upgraded through this project, and then the new pieces of the plant will be approximately 50% new technology, including the membrane system. And also inherent in the project is there will be efficiency and capacity upgrades, which will allow us to meet the needs of a growing city for many years to come. Regarding the financial impacts of this project, the city's portion of this $125 million is a little over $40 million, which we will take as a borrowing. The borrowings, which may be staged, it might not be one borrowing, it might be multiple borrowings depending on the timing of the projects, but each of those borrowings will have terms of up to 20 years with an estimated interest rate of 6.25%. Now, that might seem very high, and it is, but remember that we're just obtaining borrowing authority from the province for this project. When the borrowings are actually issued, then the rates will be adjusted to reflect the current interest rates. And so, of course, all of these numbers will reduce. With those estimated numbers, the principal and interest payments would be up to $3.6 million annually. And note that the principal and interest payments would be levied as part of water and wastewater utility rates. There is no implications to property taxes for this project. In terms of the timing for when those principal and interest rates would be incorporated into water rates, we will shortly be issuing a utility rate study to the Public Utilities Board. That will be coming before council shortly, and then it will be off to the Public Utilities Board for ultimate approval, but we anticipate that new utility rates will not come into effect until 2023. In terms of next steps, after the public hearing tonight, later on in the agenda for this meeting is first reading of the borrowing bylaw. Once council has held first reading, then that bylaw can be submitted to the municipal board to obtain our borrowing authority. Typically, that's about a 1 to 2 month process. Once they approve it, it will come back to council for second and third reading. At the same time, I mentioned that we will be issuing our rate study submission to the Public Utilities Board. That will be a longer process and will not likely be approved and new rates in effect until 2023. Regarding the project itself, the project has already started. The chemical building, which is one phase of this project, is nearing completion. And then there are also other multiple stages which will occur this year right through to 2026. Our funding agreement requires that we've completed our portion by 2027. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions on this project, specifically regarding the financial side of this project. Like I mentioned, if there's any technical questions regarding the utility itself, then Mr. Pulak, in his capacity as an engineer, would be happy to answer those.
Very comprehensive presentation, not only about the borrowing, but I think what would interest members of the public and certainly council is just the great overview about the water treatment facility in the first place, and not to repeat a lot of the things that you said, but this is clearly a mega project for the city of Brandon. This, I'm quite certain, it will be the largest capital project ever undertaken by the city of Brandon, the $125 million, and I guess some of the statistics that you put out there does kind of underscore the complexity and how long these things take. That our application to the ISIP project occurred in early 2015. So myself and a number of people around the table, we were elected in the fall of 2014. So sort of started in earnest when I became mayor, which is now going on 8 years, and that's when I began the advocacy for the funding that is required from the senior levels of government, and that just does show how long projects like this do take. And happily, we have been able to attract just over $84 million from the federal and provincial governments, $46 million from the federal government, and $38.3 from the provincial government. It's certainly highly required. The city of Brandon, could certainly not do such a large and important project like this on its own. And I often say it may not be as sort of exciting and as sexy as some projects that we may do, but probably nothing more mission critical to everyone's lives than providing, clean, safe, reliable drinking water to our whole community. So this is one of the most important projects. So open up the floor to questions from members of council. Councillor Chaboyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Mr. Hammond. Dean, are you confident that the project is going to stay within budget? Because we are going to be borrowing quite a substantial amount of money, and our funders are putting a substantial amount in. And I know that in today's economy that the prices of goods and services are up extremely high. Are you confident that you're going to stay within the amount that we're borrowing and the budget?
Hang on a minute, Dean, it's just not coming through. Okay, but Mr. Pulak also has an answer, so we'll let you guys double team this.
Oh, there's Dean.
Well, there's Dean as well, so.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Chaboyer, there is a contingency built into all of our amounts, so we always expect that there's going to be changes to the project throughout its entirety, so usually we look at 10% contingency on that. But if we do go above that, certainly we're looking at having to value engineer the project to keep it within budget.
Thank you for that, Mr. Pulak. I'm not sure if anything you'd wanted to add to that, Dean?
Just that, so for the first stage of this project, the water treatment plant, that portion of the project is on budget.
Good to know. Thanks for those two answers, and we'll keep the floor open for any other questions that councillors may have. Okay, not seeing any other hands. Thank you very much, Dean. And we're going to open now another hearing, and the public will hopefully have some comfort in knowing we've got 3 items on the agenda. Certainly was the financial plan that we had the hearing for, and then 2 other hearings for significant borrowings. And it does kind of speak to the integrity of our system, that even hopefully people elect and trust their city councils to operate these things on your behalf. We don't get a complete carte blanche or blank check to do so. There's checks and balances built in, such as these public hearings. We can't go out and borrow a large amount of money without public being made aware of it and being able to provide input. So such is the case on a couple of occasions here tonight. So again, I will open the floor for anybody wanting to make representation with respect to the borrowing regarding the water treatment plant expansion. Again, I don't think we've got too many members of the public that are here for that tonight, so we may not be seeing any. Okay, it would appear we're not going to have any presentations on this matter tonight, so a motion to conclude the hearing. Go ahead, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the public hearing with respect to the proposed borrowing for the upgrading and expansion of the city's water treatment facility be concluded.
And seconded by Councillor Frangi. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favour? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Under the order of public hearings, Your Worship, we have a public hearing for bylaw number 7331, which is to borrow funds for the construction of stormwater infrastructure in the southeast area of Brandon.
Very good. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Tyler Phillips is speaking to us again, also virtually, one of our engineers. So come ahead there, Tyler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship, and members of council and the members of the public and media that are there. The engineering department has put together a short, high-level presentation on the Southeast Brandon Drainage Improvements Project to support borrowing bylaw that's been put forward for this to pay for the construction. Little overview of what I'll be speaking to, and I'll mostly be speaking to what's included in the project, more along the lines of the kind of technical, high-level engineering aspects of it and goals of the project. Any questions regarding the financial and borrowing aspects, Ms. Fowlershell may be able to help me answer. And I also have Mark Allard, Director of Engineering, there to help me answer any questions at the end. So, we're here to talk about kind of the what, the why, and I guess what would typically be the how, but the project funding in this case, the project area, what projects are included, and some of the project schedules. And in reality, the Southeast Brandon Drainage Improvements Project is really a collection of projects that aims to construct new stormwater infrastructure in the southeast area of Brandon to augment and expand upon the existing drainage network. The reason for this is the Southeast Brandon has a drainage network that is currently incomplete and inadequate. Continued development within the area without the project or projects would increase the risk of overland flooding and potential surcharges to domestic sewer systems. And kind of the reason why we're here tonight, the project funding aspect, is administration is proposing a debenture to general borrowing, requesting the borrowing authority up to $30.14 million. These debentures will be issued in series based on cash flow required over various project phases and multiple years. So what we're looking to do is ensure that the city has the appropriate cash flow to tender out the different phases of construction for the projects that carry these out through multiple years. Taking a look at the existing southeast catchment, bound by Richmond Avenue to the north, Patricia Avenue to the south, and 26th Street and 17th Street east on the west and east. The drainage in this area predominantly flows in a southeast direction and currently ends in the Crocus Pond, which is situated just south of the Crocus Plains Regional Secondary School. From here, it is being pumped east along Patricia Avenue into an existing coulee. Primary project is Southeast Brandon Drainage Improvement, out of the Southeast Drainage Network.
Hang on just a second, Tyler, sorry to interrupt. Whatever you're using for mic, it's kind of drifting in and out, so if you could, speak as closely to your microphone, straight into the microphone as you can, please, it would help us.
Your worship, here, hang on, I'll fix them. Is that better?
Not much. You were good once in a while and then kind of drifting away there, but
and try something else. Is that any better?
it's not the greatest, but if you just maybe speak loudly, it might work. But
okay, I will try my best, and apologies for the disconnect.
yeah, carry on.
So the primary project and the main aspect of the borrowing is for the Southeast Drainage Network. It is a multi-phased project looking to augment and expand the existing drainage network that currently ends at the Crocus Pond. It has, currently as proposed, it has 5 phases, and the detailed design of phases 1 through 4 are currently underway. So taking a closer look at the phases that are included within this project and the ones we are devoting our time to right now. The first phase, which includes an outlet from the Crocus Pond and the storm sewer pipe network from there to the Douglas Pond and across 17th Street East into an existing wetland. The construction is anticipated to commence this summer. Phase 2 of this is an extension of Phase 1 and includes a large retention pond at the corner of 17th and Richmond Avenue, as well as an outlet across Richmond. We'll also look to maintain flows to the existing wetland that resides on the east side of 17th Street East. Phase 3 would see a relief sewer connecting to the existing storm sewer network at the intersection of First and Richmond. This would provide relief to the catchment to the north, as well as the catchment to the west of First Street. Pond, being called the Zenith Pond on the north side of our first phase storm sewer, would also be included. Lastly, of these first 4 phases would be the modifications to the existing Crocus Pond, which would include construction of a small pump station to allow irrigation through to the environmental preserve proposed on the east side of First Street. So moving further to the west and upstream is the cemetery and associated drainage. So here's another collection of a few projects, all situated around the cemetery. The primary goal of this here is to construct a new stormwater pond in the cemetery lands. This pond would allow for a new stormwater sewer along Aberdeen Avenue to connect to the existing pond that's situated under the liquor mart at just of Canadian Tire, and set us up for future expansion of the storm sewer network. Speaking of future expansion, once the cemetery pond is completed, it will allow us to address some high risk or land flood prone areas along 18th and Lyndale Drive, as well as along Sycamore. For this, we are proposing some new storm water sewers, one along the south side of the cemetery and another up Magnolia Drive. And so taking a look at the schedule. So as mentioned, there's quite a few different projects involved here, but both the southeast drainage network and the cemetery construction, or the cemetery drainage, are phased out over multiple years. Kind of taking a look at their kind of current schedule as we sit today, we're in the first step of the borrowing authority approval, and pending that approval, we are looking to start construction on phase 1 of the southeast drainage network this summer, as well as the cemetery pond, both take place once the funding would be approved. Altogether, all the projects total a total borrowing authority of $30.1 million. Pretty much concludes my presentation. Apologies again for the disconnect on the microphone. If anybody has any questions, if I'm not coming through clearly now, maybe it's best if Mark Allard, Director of Engineering, fields them in person there.
Very good. Thanks very much. Again, another very important, large and significant project for us, and certainly there would be many residents who will be quite interested in this, that have been, really seeing the impacts and the threats of stormwater incidents, and they'll be happy to see the city is proposing to invest heavily to try and mitigate some of this, a lot of which, of course, comes as the result of climate change that we are certainly experiencing throughout the world. Brandon certainly no exception. So thank you for all of that, Tyler. We will open the floor to questions that either you can try and answer, and as you pointed out, Mr. Allard is here from your department in the building that can also help to answer them. So we'll open the floor for that now. Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Allard, just probably due to the technical concerns there. One of the things that was in the background document was the fact that city administration had learned that some homeowners in the area weren't able to purchase insurance for damage due to flooding. I know obviously insurance companies work as they so choose, or whatever fits their business model, but Is there a feeling that this will potentially better equip members, residents in that area of the city to potentially be able to access overland flood insurance?
Through your worship to Councillor Cameron. I think it would address it in two ways. One, I think overall for the homeowner, we will reduce the risk of overland flooding and hopefully not experience what we have in the last few years. And I think a lot of the insurance and their own risk assessments, I think, are hopefully satisfied by some of the works that we do. Obviously, that's their assessment to undertake. They may have to recognize the benefits of this before they may enter down that path. But I think certainly a great benefit for all the residents and those that struggle to get home insurance. I don't think there's that many, but we have heard and do recognize that there are a few that are struggling to get insurance from an overland flooding perspective.
That's excellent. And just one more question, if I may, Your Worship. Since Councillor Brown wasn't able to sit on council for the last number of months here, I did field a couple of calls from residents there as well with regards to not so much the engineering and the creation of this new channel and new ability to move the water, but the overall maintenance of what we already have in place and some of the ditching, especially behind 9th Street, behind Maryland Park School, in that area there. I do talk to residents a number of times about that. Is there any aspect of this project that will look at improvements for that ditching behind Maryland Park School and potentially either greater capacity or greater scale to hold water there?
Not at this time. I think a combination of the entire systems, both in the southeast downstream from the Crocus Pond and with the construction of the pond at the cemetery, that area is in between those two areas. And through kind of the operating regimes of capturing that water and releasing it at a slower rate, they should recognize great improvements there as far as the amount of flow that's in there. I think at that time we could better assess if there are drainage issues that would possibly addressed at that time. But I think these capital improvements should make a significant difference within that entire catchment area, again, which goes 18th Street and even beyond onto 26th Street. I think the residents will find a huge difference in the drainage regime once they're completed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Did you hand it? Councillor Fawcett, go ahead.
Yeah, and again, thank you through your worship, and thanks to Tyler. I know that it was a good presentation because we've had it many times, and I know that he knows the details of all that. It just wasn't heard very well there, but so for the residents, you can call any of us if you have deeper questions, but we've been through it a number of times in detail. But to Mark. So a few of these, just as Councillor Berry was talking about before, I guess we're actually looking for large borrowing, but a few of these projects are out till next year and beyond. But we do have a few that are going to start this year. Our hope is this year. And some of them, like the cemetery project, are we looking at getting it to completion this year? Looked like it was things that would be to completion. What would we have completed this year?
I'm not going to say that we're going to be able to necessarily complete anything this year. I would focus on our first initiative, which is again phase 1. And once phase 1 is completed, we feel confident that we'll start to be able to control the water levels on the Crocus Pond. And right now, the Crocus Pond, or the outlet of Crocus Pond, the lack of the outlet of Crocus Pond is our bottleneck, right? That's why on a regular basis, either in the spring of the year or during a rainfall event, we continually have to pump that. So given the amount of work that is there, I think this time next year, early summer of 2023, is our goal to have phase 1 completed. There's a lot of work there. There's a lot of excavation. Some of that area is very challenging as far as groundwater conditions and that type of stuff. So that, in my opinion, is the critical piece to start reducing the risk of flooding. And unfortunate, I don't see that we will be completing that until early next year. But it is our full intention of getting a start on it here this summer.
And through your worship, just on top of that, it is really good to see that we've been monitoring this area really well through the spring. We do know we have issues in there. Like Councillor Cameron, we do get a lot of calls to go into that area. I got to meet Mr. Pulak and Mr. Winters to walk through water in people's backyards, one of the big floods this year, and through their basements. So it is great that we're addressing this, and credit to City Manager Ron Bowles when we brought this up, yourself, and kind of just really did try to push some of this through. It's the existing residents that are going to be impacted and helped, and it does allow us to continue to build, which is really important too. So again, apparently we just don't do sexy projects. We do functional, get them done, make this place work projects. They cost a lot and they have to happen.
As an engineer, that's
it is for you. It is actually quite sexy. Isn't it? You really are attracted and appeal to these things. Yeah, but I'm glad, and I'm really glad, and hopefully people do ask us, because it is a large project over the next few years. So,
thanks, Councillor Fawcett. Don't see other hands up, but you're right. We at the municipal level, we don't tend to put up statues. We put up hopefully stuff that works and keeps lives for our residents as well as we can. So that's pretty exciting in my books too. So thank you very much, Mr. Allard, and to Mr. Phillips out there in Cyberland. Thank you very much. Sorry that you're enduring the technical little glitches. The PowerPoint presentation came across very well, so I think people could see those details, and that's just fine. So now we will open the hearing. This is also another public hearing with respect to the borrowing involved, and again, another very critical and significant piece of work. As everyone could see, there's a lot going on here with the City of Brandon, and again, how exciting it is in the eye of the beholder, but I think most people do understand what the city does, and most people, and quite a large number of our population, are the recipients of implications due to stormwater, and this certainly will begin to address that over the next couple of years. So, again, I don't think we have anybody that's in the audience that may be presenting on this particular hearing. So I believe a motion to conclude would be in order on this one as well, please. Councillor Berry, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the public hearing with respect to the proposed borrowing for the construction of stormwater infrastructure in southeast Brandon be concluded.
Seconder, please. Councillor Chaboyer. Any discussion?
Just one quick question,
Go ahead,
Your Worship, if I could. Being that this is construction for stormwater infrastructure, a debenture that has to be taken out for this, is that going to be through general operating, through property taxes, or through utility?
Here comes Ms. Rochelle. I'll know the answer to that. I don't want to blurt out an answer and be wrong. Go ahead.
Through Your Worship, this is it's a general borrowing that will be levied against property taxes. Stormwater is, not considered part of the utility because it is above ground water flow.
Thank you.
Good question. Very good. Any other discussion before we call the question then? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Under the order of committee reports, Your Worship, we have a verbal report from the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium.
And go ahead, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium Board met on March 18th, 2022 for the annual general meeting of the organization, as well as our regular monthly meeting. At the AGM, the WMCA ended 2021 in a small positive position, mostly due to the government grant assistance for wages, which was the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, and the provincial arts operating grants brought forward to assist organizations during the pandemic. Unfortunately, both those are one-time offerings, so it does skew the final financial position in 2021 somewhat for the organization. As a result of the pandemic, though, in 2021, staff and the board significantly scaled back operations to assist in the relative financial position of the organization, so it did help. Our auditors are BDO, and it is their opinion of the auditors that the financial position presents fairly in all material aspects at the end of December 31st, 2021, and the financial performance and cash flow for the year end occurred in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. Now for the fun stuff, though. Note that proof of vaccination was no longer required after March 1st, 2022 at the WMCA. Face masks will continue to be required until further notice. In the coming months, we look forward to welcoming Hotel California, which is an Eagles tribute band, Randy Bachman, Menopause the Musical, the Alan Jackson Experience, not Alan Jackson, but his experience, I guess you could say. Crocus Plains presents Little Shop of Horrors, Mecca Productions Frozen, and Queen the Musical Experience. So a lot of stuff happening at the auditorium, and it is nice to see the doors open and have folks coming through and taking part as well. So, and lastly, I'd just say, as a result of the audit being favorable, just a special thanks to the wonderful staff there, led by Tom Crook, who's weathered a monumental challenge over the last year, and thank you to the Board of Governors, consisting of Brenda Lacerte, Diane Nelson, Sherilyn Jackson, Sherry Connery, Councillor Glenn Parker, and Councillor Jeff Fawcett for your contributions to the sustainability of the organization.
Very good. Excellent report. And certainly I did like the fun stuff, as you called it, only to just signify that, you know, things are getting going again, and, you know, very exciting both for the auditorium and our community to start to see some touring acts coming through on a very regular basis again. So that is certainly very welcome news. Any questions of Councillor Cameron on the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium report? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. I believe we have at least one other report.
We have a verbal report for the Brandon Urban Aboriginal People's Council.
And is that Councillor Fawcett?
I thought it was Councillor Desjardins.
Okay, now he's on virtually, but I'm not sure if he's this. I think he had been. I hear he's coming. All right, very good. Welcome, Councillor Desjardins. Go ahead, please. Don't quite hear you yet, but I think it's coming. Try it now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, good.
Okay, yeah, we had one of our first in-person meetings in quite some time last month. We welcomed a couple new people. We discussed Truth and Reconciliation Week planning, and the amount of I think there's going to be about 17 people that are sitting on that. We talked about a reconciliation teaching that will be happening the week of May 16th to May 20th. Tim Malone will be coming into Brandon. He was a special advisor to the Honourable Murray Sinclair during the Truth and Reconciliation while they were gathering the findings. He was the special advisor there, so he's coming to share reconciliation teachings here in Brandon with the city, the school division, BU, and ACC. And we also talked just about how we will plan the rest of the year out, and probably, sorry, just 1 second. You're gonna have to give me 1 second, please.
Okay.
Sorry, my daughter was playing violin and I couldn't think straight. And then lastly, we talked about the city plan and the work that we're going to do with the city to gather feedback from the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit community. So we talked about where we're going to hold those workshops and how they'll be facilitated with a steward up in the not too distant future. And I think that was mostly it. Maybe Councillor Fawcett, if he can remember anything else, he can share.
Very comprehensive meeting. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Councillor Fawcett?
No, Councillor Desjardins was very thorough. He recalled more than I think I would have if I had done it. So I was impressed by that.
Good to know. Okay, any questions then of any member of council to Councillor Desjardins or perhaps Councillor Fawcett on the BUPAC report? Again, great to see all these organizations, having been able to stay together and just kind of keep operating throughout the pandemic, but now, more importantly, now kind of getting back to a little bit more sense of normalcy in in-person meetings and, most importantly, sort of standing up the functions that, some of which had to stand down, and it's great to hear the events that BUPAC is doing as presented by Councillor Desjardins there, so we look forward to seeing a lot of that flesh out throughout the year. So if there aren't any further questions, thank you for that, Councillor Desjardins. Those are the reports we were aware of tonight, but sometimes there are other reports that committees that may have occurred, and if you did have a report, we're happy to take those now. Not seeing any others. I know that Keystone did meet, but they're going to provide their report at the next meeting. So a motion to receive the two reports that we did receive would be in order, please. Somebody want to make that? Councillor Cameron, seconded by Mr. Barry. Thank you. Any discussion? A call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. And next item, please.
The order of inquiries, Your Worship.
And Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one inquiry this evening, if I could. With the spring melt continuing here in the region, I was wondering if the city can provide residents with an update on when lane remediation work will begin in earnest for 2022, and how residents can share information on particular lane conditions, gravel repair needs in their area, or hot spots that the city might want to look to.
And thanks for that. I know this is of interest to certainly lots of councillors, are often will bring up back lane situations, and certainly residents are quite interested in this topic. And so our city manager, Mr. Ron Bowles, does have a response prepared for us. So go ahead, please.
Thank you through Mayor Kress to Councillor Cameron. Good timing for this question. I do have a response here from your Director of Public Works, Pam Richardson. Before I get to a response, though, I just want to talk a little bit about your backlane strategy policy, which is another sort of related item. You'll see in your next meeting, you'll see your next strategic plan update, and it will show that project is 40% complete and due to be completed by the end of the year. So that's the strategy and the policy side of things, but you asked more specifically about what we're doing this year. So Ms. Richardson says, each spring, Streets and Roads Department brings its regular maintenance program in back lanes, or begins its regular maintenance program in back lanes, including grading, reshaping, and adding materials as required. The commencement of this work each year is weather dependent, of course, requiring lanes to be dried up before deploying staff and equipment. At this time, we are estimating that this work will begin in approximately 2 weeks from now, unless significant precipitation falls within the city, and that could be either snow or rain, right? It is important to note that all laneways will be inspected to determine the type of maintenance repairs that are required. However, if residents wish to report specific details, they can call 204-729-2285. 204-729-2285. Thank you.
Very much. Perfect. So again, timely question, and looks like our Public Works Department are kind of gearing up to get an early start and all that, so that's good to know. And that was the only inquiry we were aware of in advance, but again, sometimes others do crop up during the day, so if there are any others, we're glad to take them now. Just checking with the councillors online. That must cover them then, so thank you very much for that. And we'll move on to the next item, please.
It is the order of announcements, Your Worship.
Any announcements this evening? Well, council's thinking, I'll just kind of lead in with one. The viewing public may notice that most councillors and staff are wearing yellow daffodils, and I think most members of the public are aware of this season. The Canadian Cancer Society's Daffodil campaign is underway. They did nicely drop down some for councillors to wear to help to highlight this certainly important campaign that occurs every year. So keep your eye open for the daffodils that may be available, and certainly there are many ways to donate at this time of year and throughout the year to the Canadian Cancer Society. So if you're wondering what these were tonight, and I will say that some councillors also are wearing blue and yellow ribbons, again in deference to the conflict and invasion atrocity, I might call it, in Ukraine, and we continue to stand for that. I appreciate councillors that are wearing their colours for that cause as well. And so any other announcements that councillors would like to make? Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. Just want to recognize the success that the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair had this past week. It was great to see it on again. It was great to see people coming to Brandon, and kudos to their board and staff and everyone else that put on a very successful event. And it was nice to see some activity, people, I guess still being cautious and all, but the turnout was good. They didn't get any really bad weather, which was favorable for them, and it was a real success, and admire the way they have managed to work their way through COVID, because they very much are dependent on tourism and events. They really were hit hard, and they made it through, and it was nice to see, and we look forward to the next few events they put on.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad that you did highlight that. I know you were there as I was, and I think other councillors throughout the week, and I know our city manager attended a couple of times, and it was very pleasing to see, and quite a bellwether really to get going after 2 canceled years. And really it would be sort of symbolic of lots of things that we have that have had to stand down for a couple of years. And, we must not underestimate the challenges of restarting some of these. Many of these organizations, we're operating with skeleton staffs through that, and then maybe have lost volunteers and people that we're carrying a lot of institutional knowledge, so it's just not a slam dunk to, really resume some of these things, especially some that are, quite large, such as the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair. And, great to see, though, that level of resilience in our community of just people being able to pull this back together, and sort of at face value. I have a lot of experience with the fair, as many people know, and, it still looked and felt like a fair always does. So, great kudos to them to pull it all back together again after 2 years of hiatus. And, I would expect that we'll see that with many organizations and, many events that we're accustomed to having. There may be a few little glitches getting them back going again, but people are just fantastically resilient and able to kind of get things going again, and it just warms our heart to see that happen. So thanks to Councillor Fawcett for reminding us of that one. Any other announcements? Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick one here. This is on behalf of Valley View Centennial School, which is in the ward that I represent. So the junior high students there are holding a food and money drive for Brandon's Food for Thought. Obviously, students want to do this to help fellow students in Brandon who are hungry coming to school. Brandon's Food for Thought program has fed over 14,000 students in 2022 thus far. The school is accepting donations from April 4th, which is today, through the 13th. Food donations can be dropped off in the box at the front door of the school, and money donations, if parents wish to, can be given to your child's classroom teacher to pass on in support of this worthy organization.
Thank you. Did they expand on what kind of food items they're most interested in?
For sure. Yeah, through your worship, they are accepting foods like cereals, crackers, granola bars, basically non-perishable food items. So stuff that does have a longer shelf life, but they definitely highlighted foods like cereals, crackers, and granola bars here. So.
Great. Thank you for that. And any other announcements? Not seeing any others. That covers it. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, please.
Under the order of general business, Your Worship, we have the 2022 financial plan.
Very good. I think we have had our presentation on this. We weren't having another one, I don't believe, so I think a motion would be in order. Whoever would like to take that. Councillor Fawcett, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the worship, that the 2022 financial plan of the City of Brandon dated April 4th, 2022, as set out in the form approved by the Minister of Municipal Relations, a copy of which is attached to the report of the Director of Finance dated April 4th, 2022, be so adopted. Further, that the operating and capital estimates outlined in the said plan be incorporated in and form part of the 2022 tax levy bylaw.
Seconder, please. Councillor Boyer. Mover wish to speak?
Thank you, through your worship. This is what we had just held the public hearing on, so we did have a bit of an opportunity to discuss that. It is a process that we go through every year, and we'll be sending things off to the province.
Thank you. Other discussion? I would like to say a word or two. Sometimes these things go through relatively unceremoniously, and yet on the other hand, you know, it's probably one of the most profound things that council does. You know, budget deliberation is a very large undertaking. Hundreds of pages involved. Every councillor works extremely hard on this, and that follows a very large effort on the part of our entire administration, months and months in the making. So it's a big operation, and I feel so fortunate that we've got such a diligent organization when it comes to the financial plan and the budget. Owing to the fact that we are dealing with taxpayers' dollars, and I believe it's taken extremely seriously in this municipality, both by our administration and by our council. Our council works, really hard, and I think tries to strike the balance between keeping taxes as affordable, keeping increases as minimal, I guess, as we can, while at the same time recognizing that we've got a solemn responsibility to look after large amount of infrastructure and services in our community. And so always trying to find that right balance of sort of spending enough to kind of keep everything up and keep our city safe and sound, and yet at the same time not taxing our residents any more than we have to. And I've always felt that we do our council does an excellent job of that. Everybody works really hard at that, bringing proposals forward, and this is yet another occasion of that. One of the larger, in fact, the largest tax increase that we've had to levy at 1.9% increase, and yet in Ms. Rochelle's presentation, we did hear that on the average house that might be assessed at $270,000, it amounts to just under $36 additional per year. It was $3 a month. So an extra $3 a month, not per person, but per household, is not a overly onerous additional amount to bear to keep up with our city. And as we've heard from some of the other presentations tonight, we are also forward-looking in terms of a lot of very significant capital works, which in themselves are good for our economy. We do create quite a lot of work and economic activity even on our own. So again, I think another exceptional financial plan, and I would like to congratulate administration and council alike, as well as the feedback that we do get from the community, especially community organizations such as the Chamber and others that do help to contribute. So again, this motion tonight really is the culmination of this budget and financial plan, and from here it goes on to the province, and the tax levies, sad as it is that we have to levy them, can proceed. So any further comments or discussion before we close? I'll let the mover close, but go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship, an excellent sort of recap of that, because it is really the biggest thing we deal with. And I've got to make note that we have great systems in place, and systems are really, really important, but the people in those systems also make a big difference. And every budget I've worked on while on council, I've worked on them with Val Rochelle, and she's retiring, and I won't even look at her over there, but she has done the residents of the city of Brandon very proud. The bureaucrats are behind the scenes doing their job, but the city was very, very well served by the work that Val had put in here. And believe me, Councillor Berry and Councillor Chaboy and I will tell you, we all learned a lot in our first few years, and it's really, really, really good. So our systems are great, and she's leaving it in great hands and everything, but people do matter. And we've been very fortunate to have some very good people in here. So we'll have more to come, but take note of that. This is the last time I'm referring to her retirement.
Thank you very much, and that is well said, and certainly those are well-deserved comments. I can't even see her; she's hiding behind over there as well. And
Hold her mask up over
I would
her face.
certainly echo that. Obviously, I worked very closely with her and learned very early there's no rounding off to the nearest 100. There's not even any rounding off to the nearest $5. We are down to every dollar and cent. So when you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars, the taxpayer should feel pretty good about the fact that our staff and the likes of Val Rochelle are that detailed and extremely detailed, and she really treats it as her own money. I swear I haven't asked her husband, but I think she's more diligent with our money than probably with their own. So thank you very much. Any other comments before we call the question on this? Did you want to close, or was that your closing?
That's close.
Okay. We're going to ask for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And next item, please.
Is the amendment to resolution number 1290, the affordable housing incentive for 802-11th Street. And I just wanted to make note that because no notice was provided, there has to be a 2/3 vote.
Thank you. This is kind of a housekeeping item. Mrs. Sandy Trudell is available to answer questions if there are any. She's not going to make a presentation. This does fall under her department. Really, just just kind of changing a name really in the resolution, but a required 2/3. So, if somebody would like to make that motion, please. Councillor Frangi, go ahead, please.
I move that Council Resolution number 1290 relating to an affordable housing incentive for 802 11th Street and 354 8th Street adopted at the December 2021 meeting of City Council be amended by deleting the words Vinyl Holding Partnership and substituting, therefore, the words 10034-391 Manitoba Limited.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Any discussion? Again, it's really just a housekeeping item. You know, and this does arise quite often, that the original sort of agreement that we may enter into with a company, and then as they kind of detail it out and put it out into another company name or holding company name, and then we just have to amend those fine details. So that's what really all this is about. Nothing else about the project changes, I believe. Is there any other discussion? And we are reminded that a 2/3 majority are required to pass this. So without further ado, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Is the potential amendments to animal control bylaw and fee schedule.
Go ahead, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll read this on behalf of Councillor Lupke, who was unable to be in attendance tonight for this meeting. This is actually one of his motions he brought forth earlier, that the report with respect to possible amendment of animal control bylaw number 5900 and the schedule of fees be deferred to no later than May 16, 2022.
Seconder, please. Councillor Frangie, whoever wish to speak?
No, it's pretty straightforward, Your Worship. I know we were expecting a report back on this sooner, but they're asking to have it come back no later than May 16th. So
yeah, so really just Council's original motion had an earlier date, and they just need a little bit more time. So
right.
Keep it straight. Ready for the question then? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And next item, please.
It is the amendment to Provincial Highway Traffic Act Image Capturing Enforcement Regulation 2020-2002.
And this is similar proposition. Go ahead, Councillor Berry.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Again, on behalf of Councillor Lupke, he is going to owe me a coffee after I do these last ones for him here. But his motion, that the pending motion to make a formal request to the province of Manitoba to amend the Highway Traffic Act Image Capturing Enforcement Regulation be further tabled until June 20th, 2022.
And seconder again, please, Councillor Chaboyer. And same idea, earlier date had been contained in Council's motion, but administration needs a little bit more time. I think in this case they want it to go to the police board that will meet in earlier June, and then it will come back to Council after that. Any discussion? Call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And next item, please.
Under the order of bylaws, Your Worship, bylaw number 7324 to rezone 309 Princess Avenue.
And Councillor Desjardins, go ahead, please. Give us a minute to get you up on the screen here, though.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good now. Go ahead.
Okay, to Your Worship, I move that bylaw number 7324 to rezone property located at 309 Princess Avenue from commercial general zone to downtown mixed use be read a second time.
Yes, thank you. And seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Whoever wishes to speak.
Did administration want to speak to this before we get to third reading?
Okay, and Mr. Nicol, were you planning on giving us some highlights on this? Thank you, Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you, Council. Just a few really quick highlights here. This application went previously to the Planning Commission for a public hearing, and there were no speakers in opposition. There was a public outreach report submitted by the applicant, and that's part of your agenda package. That shows that there were multiple neighbors directly communicated with as part of the process, including the neighbor most directly impacted directly to the north. The feedback that came back, as per the report, was that the feedback was positive because the design of the site took into account the privacy of that neighbor to the north, which is a smaller detached home. From a downtown design perspective, The downtown plan typically says that we want these larger buildings directly oriented towards the primary street, which in this case is Princess, but there was some give and take here to orient the building north-south, which decreased the presence on Princess but did provide increased privacy because the balconies are facing east-west and the windows to the north are minimized. So there's always a trade-off in planning, and that's one of the trade-offs that was done here. And it seemed to work with the resident to ensure the building height, which is 4 stories, but ensure it was still a little bit better match for the neighborhood. From the overall vision, the downtown plan adopted by City Council identifies the need to increase intensity downtown, including intensifying our main corridors, which are Princess and Rosser Avenue. And this is another recent example from the applicant Keller Developments and coming forward and utilizing our new rules in proposing a new 16-unit multi-unit building. So it furthers our vision. In terms of the conditions of approval, pretty standard fare, just cash in lieu for different parks and schools, and the access is directly off Princess, so they're not going down the lane, so no need for back lane strategy questions on this one. And the boulevard tree that's going to get taken out is going to be replaced to ensure we're keeping our tree canopy. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nickel. Open the floor to questions. Come back to the mover. Let's see, make sure the online counselors, whether or not they have any. Did you have one, Councillor?
I have no other questions, so it's just read a second time.
Okay. I think we're ready for the call the question on second reading then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And if you want to go ahead, Councillor Desjardins, for the third reading deferral motion, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. That third reading of this bylaw be held in abeyance pending the owner of or successor entering into a development agreement with the City of Brandon, subject to the following conditions. The developer agrees to develop 16 residential units in general consistency with the attached site plan. 2, the developer agrees to contribute $714.67 for cash in lieu of land dedicated to public reserve. Contribution is due in full upon execution of the development agreement. The developer agrees to contribute to the Brandon School Division in lieu of land dedication in the amount of $3,240. Number 4, the developer agrees to mitigate increased runoff of both 5-year pre- and post-development and 100-year pre- and post-development stormwater events. The developer will be required to submit design drawings as prepared by a professional engineer, with such design being subject to review and acceptance by the city engineer. And 5, the developer agrees that should a boulevard tree need to be removed on Princess Avenue, a replacement tree will be planted in the boulevard along 3rd Street. Lastly, that administration be authorized to prepare a development agreement containing all conditions and requirements to protect the city's interests in accordance with any procedures, policies, bylaws, and acts.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please. Councillor Frangi. And the mover could speak if he wants. This motion is kind of common that we hold the third reading in abeyance. Really, it's just until the development agreement is now executed and signed between the city and the developer, then it does come back for final third reading. Anything to add, Councillor Desjardins?
Only that I think I, along with other councillors, are looking forward to it coming back to council and getting some more development going in the downtown. This is hopefully the year we'll have here in 2022.
Great. It looks like a good-looking project there. So, any other discussion? I'm going to call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7327 to impose and levy taxes for the fiscal year 2022.
Councillor Chaboyer, go ahead, please.
I move that bylaw number 7327 to impose and levy property taxes for the fiscal year 2022 be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Fawcett. Again, this is first reading only, so not normally debatable. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7328 to borrow funds for the upgrade and expansion of the water treatment facility.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7328 to provide for the borrowing and expenditures of funds for the purpose of upgrading and expanding the city's water treatment facility be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Frangie. Again, first reading only. Won't debate this at this time. Going to call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Of course, these have been following some of the public hearings we had earlier in the evening. And next item, please.
Bylaw number 7329 to amend bylaw number 6974, campaign expense limits for municipal candidates.
Councillor Frangie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7329 to amend campaign expenses and contribution bylaw number 6974 to increase the limit to campaign expenses that may be accrued by the candidates and to index any future increase for inflation be read the first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Chaboyer. Again, we won't debate this. I will just say in advance, though, that public will see a few first reading of bylaws that will be sort of shaping things up for the election campaign that will be occurring. Municipal elections across the province will occur October 26th this year. So some of these things are kind of getting our system in order prior to that. So we won't, with this will get debated or discussed in a future meeting. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item.
Bylaw number 7330, use of municipal resources in an election.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7330 to establish the rules and procedures for the use of municipal resources before a general election or by-election be read a first time.
Thank you. And seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. In first reading, we will discuss this in the near future. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7331 to borrow funds for the construction of stormwater infrastructure in the southwest area of Brandon. Southeast, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Chaboyer.
I move that bylaw number 7331 to provide the borrowing and expenditure of funds for the purpose of constructing new stormwater infrastructure in the southeast of Brandon, including stormwater retention ponds, storm sewers, and ditching be read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Parker. Just looking at the online people this time. So, and again, first reading only. This will come up very soon. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7332 to change the boundaries and names of the electoral wards in the city of Brandon.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7332 to change the boundaries and names of the electoral wards in the city of Brandon be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Frangie. And again, uncharacteristically, I'll just make a comment. This is certainly an important aspect and only happens every number of years, and this will need to occur prior to the next election. Really, we need to do it 6 months prior to the election, so we have to complete this by the end of April. So we will look forward to fulsome discussion on this at the at the next meeting. And so again, residents can see this and digest this, and as will councillors, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting. But this will certainly put this out in the public domain and get the ball rolling. So we'll again call a question on first reading. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Giving of notice, Your Worship.
Any giving of notice this evening? Not seeing any. Next item.
A motion to adjourn would be in order.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Chaboyer. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much.